Kings Mountain, when Americans butchered Americans. October 7th, 1780. The Revolutionary War is on a knife's edge. The British are tearing through the south. Washington's army is reeling in the north. But on a rocky hill in South Carolina, everything changes. 1,000 frontier fighters surround a Loyalist force of fellow Americans. The result isn't just victory, it's massacre. The Battle of Kings Mountain didn't just turn the war in the South, it showed that America's revolution was also a civil war, and sometimes civil wars are bloodier than anything else. This is the unfiltered version of the Battle of Kings Mountain on War Unfiltered. From 1779 to 1780, the war is going badly for the Patriots. The British capture Savannah, then Charleston, then crush Gates's army at Camden. The South looks lost. Cornwallis believes Loyalist support will carry Britain to victory, and so he unleashes Major Patrick Ferguson, a Scottish officer, to recruit Loyalists and terrorize rebels. Ferguson issues a threat to the backcountry: lay down your arms, or we'll hang your leaders and lay waste to your country with fire and sword. However, that threat backfires. The Overmountain Men, tough frontier settlers from today's Tennessee, Virginia, and North Carolina states, saddle up. They aren't regular soldiers. They're farmers, hunters, Indian fighters, hardened by frontier violence, and they come for Ferguson. In defense, Ferguson chooses Kings Mountain, a rocky ridge, to make his stand. He believes it's impregnable. His Loyalists number about 1,100, armed with muskets and bayonets. The Patriots number about the same, but they're different. They don't march in neat lines. They fight like guerrillas in buckskin, with long rifles instead of muskets. And on October 7th, they encircle the ridge, climbing in waves, each group firing from cover, retreating, then pressing forward again. Ferguson rides up and down in a checkered hunting shirt, blowing his whistle, rallying his men, but the Loyalists are trapped. There's nowhere to run. The Overmountain Men tighten the noose, and things begin to change drastically. The weapons and technology during this time were not elegant 18th century warfare. It was closer, it was direct, it was personal. Long rifles, more accurate than British muskets, deadly at 200+ yards. The frontiersmen grew up with them. Bayonets, the Loyalists had them, the Patriots didn't. If it came to close quarters, the riflemen would be slaughtered. That's why they fought from trees and rocks, knives and tomahawks. When the lines collapsed, men hacked each other apart at arm's length. This was warfare stripped down to bone and blood. There were many key figures in this battle, but we'll focus on these lads. Major Patrick Ferguson, the only British officer at Kings Mountain, a brilliant and seemingly arrogant leader who convinced his Loyalist militia they would crush rebels. He refused to retreat even when surrounded, and for that he died on the field, riddled with bullets. Isaac Shelby and John Sevier, frontier leaders who rallied the Overmountain Men. They weren't polished generals, they were militia colonels who knew how to fight dirty. The Overmountain Men, farmers, trappers, Indian fighters, they were used to killing in ambushes. They brought the brutality of the American frontier wars into the Revolution. The Loyalists, often neighbors of the Patriots, men who swore loyalty to the crown and paid for it with their lives. The real human stories are sometimes harder to digest. The fighting was savage. Loyalists tried to surrender, waving white flags, but the frontiersmen kept shooting, stabbing, and tomahawking. One survivor said, "They were massacring the Loyalists after they had laid down their arms and begging for mercy." Ferguson himself was shot multiple times, dragged by his horse, then finished off. His body was stripped and mutilated. In 65 minutes, 300 Loyalists were dead, 163 wounded, and 700 captured. The Patriots lost only 28 soldiers. It was slaughter disguised as battle. But the brutal honesty is, Kings Mountain wasn't noble revolution. It was neighbor against neighbor. It was a civil war inside a revolution. The Patriots called themselves freedom fighters, but at Kings Mountain they showed no mercy. They butchered fellow Americans who had surrendered. Was it justice for Ferguson's threats, or revenge after years of British brutality in the Carolinas? Honestly, there's probably a bit of both, but the truth is, it was Massacre, and it worked. At War Unfiltered, we like imagining an alternative universe or a what-if on the topics we cover, and for Kings Mountain, it unfortunately seems bleak in all endings. But let's review it and you tell me in the comments what your thoughts are. What if Ferguson had crushed the Overmountain Men? Well, then maybe Cornwallis would have had a secure Loyalist base in the backcountry. He could have pushed deeper into North Carolina, maybe even linked with Benedict Arnold in Virginia. But Kings Mountain broke that momentum. Loyalist support collapsed. Cornwallis was forced north, stumbling into Yorktown 1 year later, and finally his surrender. Without Kings Mountain, there may never have been a Yorktown. America might still be singing God Save the King. Kings Mountain rarely makes the headlines in American history books, but Thomas Jefferson called it the turn of the tide of success. Today, there's a national military park at the site, but most Americans have never heard of it. And here's the kicker, this isn't ancient. Kings Mountain was fought in 1780. That's only 8 generations ago. Your great-great-great-great-grandparents were alive in its aftermath. And it wasn't redcoats versus bluecoats, it was Americans slaughtering Americans. And that's the part we don't like to remember. Kings Mountain wasn't glorious, it was brutal, it was messy, it was a massacre, but it saved the revolution. It proved that ordinary settlers, farmers with rifles, could break the spine of Loyalist resistance and turn the war. The revolution wasn't just about independence, it was about civil war. And at Kings Mountain, America was born not just from freedom, but from blood spilled by its own hands. This has been War Unfiltered. Please like and subscribe for new videos every week.